Greetings once again, fellow modelers. Haven't done an intro in a long time. I've had way too much going. Okay, once again, I've split the video up into two movies simply because I had too much video. If you look on YouTube, you'll see I put up like 6 movies in 5 weeks or so. I'm doing the best I can to work on as many projects as I can and get as much done as I possibly can before Christmas, so hang in there. Trust me, have a little faith. Anything that you don't see in this movie is going to be in the next movie. So Lance, Jack, Frank, and a couple of others, it will be in the next movie. I've already got the video for most of it. But I needed to show something a little different than the same ship over and over. So I show a little work on Mark's ship, and I show a new model that I just came in, because it's awesome and it's new and it's from Atomic City, and it's the 2001 Aries 1B. Alright, so enjoy the movie. There's a lot in here naturally, as always, and there's a lot more to come. So stay tuned, keep on trekking, let's get to it. This is a 555 timer circuit. This is timed exactly to the lighting sequence for the flasher on the refit Enterprise. Therefore, this one circuit is going to be used multiple times in Lance's refit, the 1/20th scale refit bridge and BC deck, and the 240 scale refit, which is 1/2 studio scale, 50 inches long. Same circuit. The 555 timer and an RC time constant is the basis for all of these flasher circuits. One single chip. Additionally, for multiple outputs, the 555 timer, in conjunction with the 4017 clock timer divider sequencer chip, is the basis for many multiple flashing circuits and circuits that flash in sequence, i.e. the spinnies on the original series Enterprise circuit that I'm working on, flasher circuits. And it all goes down to timing and 2 chips. So it's really not rocket science. When you've got a background in electrical engineering, this is basic stuff 101. I built this circuit. This is my breadboard, my parts. I just want to make sure, you know, that everybody knows that this was designed and timed specifically by my friend Big Jim Slade. He sat down and took the time to do a step-by-step, frame-by-frame timing sequence, and this is what he came up with. There's only a slight variation on this circuit for the original series timing circuit, so I'm going to be using almost exactly the same circuit with a minor variation for the flashers, nav lights, and anti-collision lights on both the 350 refit and the 350 original series. So there you go. I will post this circuit for free online to anyone who wants it. Okay, from last week. Now, I've sanded both of these sections down with 600 grit wet sandpaper, smoothed and cleaned and sharpened all the edges. I'm going to do some more work on this to get it smooth as silk. Then I'm going to put a final coat on it. Now I need to do a little more cleanup just on the edges on this new master, because I want it to be perfect before I make a mold. As soon as I get a mold of this, I start assembly on the complete unit and start programming the soundboard as well as building the lights. I've still got to make a cast of the mold that I made for the alert section here, And other than that, it's just about good to go. So we will check back on this later or in the next movie. I can't really say. I've got way too much video. I may have to parse some out till next week. I wanted to show this briefly. This is the $28, $30 toy that you can buy online. Well, you could. I don't know if you still can. And this is the difference between a toy and a full-scale, studio accurate, with accurate grill material, brand new laser cut masters. This is the difference between a toy and a studio scale prop. Woohoo! You feel me? You see what I'm saying? See where I'm coming from? All right, let's have a look at Mark's original series pilot version. Now, I just did a finish sand and paint on this. I'm not going to go any deeper. I'm not going to try to totally fill in all the grid lines. I left just a faint hint at what was originally there because I'm of the opinion that they just go way too deep. These grid lines go way too deep. Now, I also did a finish sand on the bridge and BC deck. I'm getting ready to paint that so that that color, that primer color, matches this, which is going to be the base coat for both pieces. As soon as I have that painted and it's cured and ready to go, finished sanded, I'm going to glue it in and do some more assembly. Now, I've got most of Mark's primary components, pylons, nacelles, engineering hull, neck, etc. painted. But I need to paint these, and I wanted to discuss this slightly. If you see here, there are troughs in this part. Low spots, valleys, if you will. Now, I went over this with 200 grit sandpaper, 220. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with a heavy coat of primer, as well as these two pieces. Let that fully dry. Then resand it with some 400 and then 600 grit and put a final coat on all three pieces, as I'm currently lighting 3 ships all at just about the same time. I'm working on Lance's refit, Jack's original series, and Mark's pilot version, all at about the same time. Lance's takes priority because it's a lot more involved, but I have to get moving on these other 2 builds as well. I've also got some work that I'm working on for Frank and Truby and Schubert, but I can't show everything just now. Here we are, everything is painted now. All of the main parts are painted. As you can see, the pilot bridge is drying, as are the rest of the pieces. Now, a little more work on these pieces and everything will be ready to start the assembly of the main sub-assemblies. And I wanted to show you exactly what paint I use for my primer and finish coat, because it is almost a perfect match for the old 1966 Ford Gray primer. And here it is. Rust-Oleum Professional Primer, fast drying, any angle spray, yada yada yada, etc., etc. You can find this for about $6 or $7 a can at Home Depot. Woohoo! All right, now I've got a final coat on all of the parts. The lower primary hull has been sanded so you can just barely see the grid line. The main grid line's recut. All of the spare extra windows have been opened up. All of the little windows have been cleaned out. The upper primary hull is done as well, and the bridge and BC deck for the pilot is done. The forward part of the nacelles are done. The deflector dish air ray housing, conical section, what have you, is done. And I'm ready to start stuffing it full of electronics and assembling the sub-assemblies. So we will see more of this the next movie. But right now I've got to move on to a couple of other things. These are the gold letters for the 1/2 studio scale original series commissioning and or dedication plaque that is going on Jack's buildup of his 350th original series Enterprise. So I wanted to show that. I'll show some more steps next week or next video, what have you, and we'll see this come together. This is going to be beautimous when it's done. I've done several of these, full scale, half scale, etc. And once again from last week or the last movie before last, whichever, here we have the silver painted Nomad brass. Now, as I said last week, I cleaned this all up with steel wool and a greenie, let it dry, hit it with an etching primer, let that cure, and then shot it with some silver chrome. The only thing is, one of these things is not like the other. Apparently I wasn't paying attention and I got one of them backwards. So I've got to cut one out and or flip this over and do it right. Anyway, that's for the 1/6 Nomad with lights and sounds. I am perfect. I am Nomad. Non sequitur. All right, let's talk about wire for a minute. Now, I've been doing a lot on electronics over the last several months, but I haven't really talked a lot about wire. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about wire. Wire is your main conductor for extending your circuit, i.e. moving your switch off of the board or extending your LEDs out into, say, the pylons and the nacelles of the refit or original series ship. Now, each one of these is a braided 2-wire single conductor. This came out of telephone cable. As you can see, you've got one primarily dark color wire, and wrapped next to it is a white wire with that same color stripe. Okay? This makes it real easy. You can use the white as your return and the dark color as your hot, or vice versa. At least you'll know. If you use the dark color as your ground, then your white wire with that color stripe will be your main conductor of electricity to the circuit, and this will go back to ground, to a common ground. Now, I've got, what have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pairs. So I've got 14 wires, enough for 13 circuits and 1 common ground. Now, right here, I guess I gotta get it up here and show you. This is the single conductor inside the wire. Some of this colored wire will have multi-strand. I like to use the single conductor. It's just a preference of mine. Makes it easier to get into soldering boards or to solder into circuit boards, etc. Now I've got about 2 feet here. Let's see. Okay. So I've got about 27 inches. So I've got over 2 feet. I've got about 2 feet 3 inches. Now that gives me plenty of conductor to expand my circuit off into the primary hull, the nacelles, what have you, throughout, say, the original series 350th scale Enterprise or the refit scale Enterprise. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip back the conductor, unbraid several of them at the ends, wire them into different circuits that I'm working on right now, and then we'll show how it all just separates everything from the circuit board and makes it easier to control and easier to handle. There we go on single conductor wire. Now it's multi-strand because there are 2 wires per strand, but you've only got 1 conductor per color. Now here's some other single conductor. This is black and white. Obviously, black is usually your ground, and red or white is your hot or your positive side coming directly from your power supply or battery. So, there you go on some more single conductor wire. This is a slightly higher gauge because it's just a bit thicker. Look up American wire gauge on the internet, or AWG. I haven't had much to show on the full-scale Nomad lately, so I did want to show this. Right now it's about 19 degrees outside, so I'm not going to be working in the garage today. I'm going to be importing everything into the house. Now, I'm not going to be doing a lot on the Nomad today. I've got to finish up some contract work, and I've got to do some more on the build-ups, electronics, etc., etc. But I did get this 2-inch piece of Schedule 40 CPVC, or is it PVC? PVC pipe. This is going to be the neck and the main support for the Nomad. This is going to run right up through to the top that goes on to the very top where the light comes out and hits Uhura, and down through the main head and into the main body housing. So this is going to be the main support from the middle section all the way up. About 2 feet, 24 inches, right at 24 inches. Schedule 40, nice and thick. Thick, heavy duty PVC. I've also got 3 of these antennas. So all I've got to do now is figure out how I'm going to extend the antennas. To be truthfully honest, I've got it all figured out, but I've got to find one, and I'll tell you another day. Look at what I have here. Yes, it's the main hull component of the Atomic City Models 2001 A Space Odyssey Aries 1B. I've got to say, what a magnificent job on the crisp, clean, sharp detail. Now this is a big model. It's 15 inches in diameter, so all in all it's larger than a basketball, and between the size of a basketball and a medicine ball, and I've got to say it's a really sharp looking kit. Very well packed again. Now there are some parts that have some bubbles and holes that are going to need filler, but once again, on something this big, it's going to happen, and it's nothing to cry about. You just do what you need to do and you take it for action. So here's some more on the Aries. Let's have a look at a few more parts. And here we have the Atomic City 2001 A Space Odyssey Aries 1B. I just got this build job from my new friend Matt, and it looks like it's going to be a fun build. There are lots of parts, lots and lots of parts, 324 parts to be exact, and stickers and etc. Every one of these parts is going to need some form of cleanup, but that's standard operating procedure with these resin kits. It's just the way it is. Doesn't matter who makes them, you're always going to have cleanup. Well, I've got to say, so far I will say this: it was a very professionally packed kit. All the parts were professionally packed in individual containers and wrappings, etc. So I have to give Captain Cardboard kudos on the professional packing job. Now, I've looked through most of these parts, and I have as yet to find a broken or cracked one. So once again, excellent job, Captain Cardboard and Company. Let's look at some more. Alright, as you see here, we have what appears to be the main interior support structure, and I guess the lower plate for attaching all the wonderful components to. I will find out as I build this. I looked for directions and couldn't find any. Then I found Captain Cardboard's videos, and so far his videos are really easy to follow, and it looks like it's going to be a relatively straightforward build. Considering the clean, crisp, shaped parts, the good cut lines, this is going to be real easy to make it look like a studio model, and I have every intention of doing just that. I'm going to put this in front of a green screen for sure. Now, I've already got a custom base designed for this that's going to look exactly like the landing platform that you see on the moon in the movie, that descends down into the Clavius crater. So we will see that when this is done. Because it's going to take a little doing. I'm going to have to scale everything up for this model, but it's going to look just like a scene out of the movie, and I will definitely be putting this in front of a green screen. So once again, Atomic Cities 2001: A Space Odyssey, Aries 1B. Alright, this is the final box of parts for Captain Cardboard's Aries 1B from Atomic City, and everything looks as good as all the rest of the parts, so I really don't have a lot to say. I'm not going to unwrap and show each and every part, because we will see each and every part of this ship as it's built, and that's going to be the fun of it. Okay, here are some of the main parts of the Aries 1B. What I've done here is I've washed every one of these every single one of these parts in a mild dish detergent solution, and rubbed and got rid of all of the mold release with a sponge or a rag, cotton cloth, what have you. The thing is, you've got to be careful with this stuff, because if you get the water too hot, it will warp and twist. If you don't get it quite warm enough, it's not going to have quite the same effect. The best detergent to use, in my humble opinion, is Dawn dish soap, because Dawn cuts through grease and a lot of other things and does not hurt the resin. Now, I've got these main components clean. I'm going to let them dry for a couple hours, go over them with a hand towel. Then I'm going to start assembling the lower section and the plate that contains all of the engines and main engine components. I'm going to probably shoot each and every one of these parts with primer, though I really don't have to, because I don't have to worry about light blocking or anything on this at this point. But I'm going to hit it with a dark primer, then a lighter primer, then a coat of flat white, and I will explain all that a little bit later on in the build-up of this magnificent model. Okay, here's a spot where there's a pretty good flaw. This obviously must have gotten an air bubble in it. As you can see right here, this is going to have to be repaired. I'm going to go ahead and prime this and put a base coat on it. Let the enamel set up, then I'll use a small amount of putty to try to resculpt this detail. There are a couple of details, like right here, where little pieces are broke off or had air bubbles in them. There are a couple more like that. Let's see. Anyway, there are a couple more flaws, but they're all fixable. I just want to make sure to make note of them, because this is something you have to contend with. It's not a big deal. Now, some modelers would absolutely have a hissy fit over something like this. But having done this for a few years, I totally get it. Now, this can really easily be hidden with a little black paint, as in detail or weathering or what have you. But I'm going to have to try to repair these spots and make them look 100%, so that the guy I'm building it for is a happy camper when he sees the finished product. Alright, let's have a little more of a look at the Captain Cardboard Aries 1B. Alright, as you can see here, though you may not be able to tell everything I'm saying, I've painted all the lower main body parts with 2 coats of primer, one dark, one lighter gray, and I'm getting ready to paint them all in flat white. I've painted the main cockpit section and or roof of the Aries the same way, dark gray, light gray, and flat white. I'm getting ready to do some minor cleanup and some light sanding, and probably shoot it with one more coat of flat white. Let that set up. Then I'm going to do some light weathering early on. I want this to feel exactly like what you see in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And again, I am going to put this in front of a green screen as soon as possible. Now there are some areas of cleanup, and there's one place here I need to patch. All of these have got holes in them. I need to try to straighten that up and clean that up. That came that way. I did not do that. Those are air bubbles. I had nothing to do with that. I just had to do the cleanup and repair on them. Now each one of these holes is where the thrusters go. Now from what I understand of Captain Cardboard's video, you've got to put something in behind that. So that's not a problem. I'm going to do that and start work on the thrusters a little bit after I get done with the main body section here. Alright, now I'm going to show some of the cockpit interior parts. Captain Cardboard's got several videos up, but there are still a lot of things missing. So I've been trying to piece it together here and there as much as possible. I haven't really put a lot of time in this. As you can tell, all I've done is wash all the parts, shoot a couple coats of primer, some flat white, and do a little piddling around on placement and puzzling out the parts. Let's have a look at some interior parts. And here are some of the interior components to the Aries 1B. Yes, I'm not going to keep saying it over and over. Atomic City, Captain Cardboard, woohoo! Excuse me. All right. These look like the pockets for where the landing gear draw up into, so I'm not going to deal with those just yet. All of the parts that are out of the bag have been washed and dried, and anything that isn't in a bag right now is getting ready to go into primer. This is the elevator or the entryway for the main cabin, the main passenger deck, and this is the roof that goes on top of it with the signs, caution, blah, blah, blah. As you can see, we've got 4 little figures that are in scale. Unfortunately, I think, oopsie, her hands are missing. So I'm going to see if I can't get a replacement on this. The other guys all look pretty good. I think they're workable. Obviously, this looks like Haywood Floyd having a little look at some material. One of the pilots, co-pilot, what have you. One of the stewardesses, obviously. She lost her hands. Now here are the main engine parts. Each one of these that are taped together is 3 different separate components. It's pretty obvious that they're almost exactly the same. If you look at them, see here you've got 3 tubes here, a greebly here and a greebly here, and this pretty much matches all across. So I've just got to figure out exactly how they are positioned, because we haven't got to that yet in Captain Cardboard's directions. Now I'm going to finish, I'm going to paint these, primer them and paint them, and I'm going to start some of the detail and weathering right now, just to get it out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and assemble the other engine parts that go here, do the same to those, and then glue them together, so I've got that much done. But I don't want to start attaching greeblies to the exterior of this, simply because I don't want to make one wrong guess and then have to try to repair it. So I'm going to assemble as many of the sub-assemblies as I can, and then I guess put it on the shelf, or until I get some information from Atomic City on further directions. Now, all these that are still in bags have not been touched yet. I've just been taking inventory and trying to figure out exactly where they go, even though I don't want to do any assembly on the moving parts just yet. So that's pretty much it for this review of the Aries. I'm probably going to do a little more work and then box all this back up, because frankly I don't want to get ahead of myself. Now these seats, there are a lot of bubbles in the bottom of these seats, but not to worry, you will never see that. This is where they go into the deck work for the cabin. Now each one of these seats is going to need a little bit of cleanup, but that's no big deal. You know, it's all part of the deal. You know, this is not a snap together kit or a 12500 Enterprise or some simple out of the box thing. This is a very well crafted resin kit. And I'm sorry to say, but these garage kits, every one of them, including mine, are gonna have issues. This is not mass production. You don't have a team or a fleet of engineers trying to make sure that everything is perfect as they run it through an injection molding machine. So people that buy garage kits should know that. They're gonna be a little work. But that's what makes them all the more worth it, because when you're done, you can say, look at my canvas and see the brilliant painting that I made on my starship. Anyway, so much for the Aries. We will see more in the next movie, I suppose.